call to order the April 8th meeting of the Village Council. If you will stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing and pray with me. Lord God, we just pause to marvel at your majesty, Lord, the majesty of the cliffs today, and to see that and see the way that you work within your creation. Lord, we marvel at you giving us the ability to witness that and to enjoy that, and giving us the knowledge to do that safely. Lord, tonight we ask for wisdom, for knowledge, and for understanding in our discussions, and we pray that in all that we do it in a way that would honor you. We pray in your name, Jesus. Amen.
All right. So that leads us to public comments. First on the docket is Mr. Joel Down. You will come to the podium and state your name and address for the agenda, please.
Hello, Council.
For the agenda. For the record.
Yes. Hello, Council. My name is obviously Joel Down. I reside at 408 Conaway Court. Last saw my address, but obviously we live in the village of Weston Chapel. And as you guys know, I'm on the Communications Committee, but I'm not representing anyone that's on the Communications Committee, nor the Communications Committee itself. I'm just representing myself and nor my family either. First, I'd like to remind you and urge you, as I did the County Commissioners, and Council Member Boyce just did, to remember to ask God for wisdom in everything that you do and all the actions that you may take, because it is very important to obviously get his input in what you guys decide to do. Secondly, I'd like to thank you, the council, and all those folks that worked on the grant for the $250,000 grant for the dam project and other functions that can be used for. I'd like to encourage you to continue looking into those types of opportunities, and want to thank everyone that was a part of that. I'm not necessarily sure all those people, but I want to thank you guys all. Third, an idea that I want to bring to the council today was a possible partnership that you could possibly facilitate with one of the trash companies. I don't know how this would necessarily entirely work, but it's just an idea that I had to throw out there. My idea basically hinges on participation from some of the residents. It wouldn't be necessarily to all the residents could opt in, but I feel that it should be more of an opt-in program versus a everyone program where people could opt into it and decide to pay whatever fee that may be. I know that my family personally pays for a trash company to come and take out our trash, and there's quite a few in my neighborhood that do as well. But I know that there's a larger amount of people that do in the village. And so I just was thinking that maybe we could bring that cost down if the trash companies were willing to give like a type of bulk discount type thing. Like Costco, I guess you could say. But I don't think that people that don't use it should be subsidizing those that do, because I know that some of my neighbors don't do that because they don't have enough trash and they just go to the dump, and that works for them. So I feel that if people want to opt in, they can. If they can't, if they don't want to, they don't have to. And then the fourth thing that I want to voice my support in was from the January unified meeting between all the municipalities in the area that I was watching earlier today. The proposed legislation that was talked about at that meeting, as you may know, Ms. Fuller, it was the removing the donut holes in the municipalities, such as in the Wesley Oaks neighborhood. There's a bunch of holes, and it gets very, very confusing, as every one of you probably know, and different residents also know. So I think that's a great idea, and I just wanted to voice my support in support of that proposed legislation. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. All right. Young people have so much energy. Next one is Alma Martinez from Jason Concrete. You will come and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Alma Martinez, and I'm with JSO Concrete, and we're from Charlotte. First, I'd like to thank you guys for having us today and the opportunity to come and kind of tell you guys a little bit about our company. So JSO has about 20 plus years of experience doing different types of concrete and work all around the Charlotte area and surroundings. And we mainly specialize in concrete work, but we also do other kind of works as well. Now we're here today to talk about the concrete work on the park. that we gave you guys a quote for, and to answer any questions or concerns you guys might have regarding that project. If you guys want a step-by-step explanation as to how the process will be done, and just to answer any concerns or questions you guys might have.
Thank you. That's in item 8 on our agenda, so if you have questions, we'll definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, anybody else, public comment? All right, so it leads us to additions, deletions, and adoption of agenda. We're going to add Deb on as 5C to give an update on the Dogwood Grove and the art show, right? And do we have any other additions, deletions? Now, entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? That leads us to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Note, did,
I'm good with that.
okay, the planning board, Richard Stevens is elected not to renew his term. Karen Izzo is the longest serving, but she has offered to forfeit her team to Jonathan, if council so desires. So if you'd like to make that change before we adopt the consent agenda, please do so. If not, we'll just move forward.
I want to see how Duke it out. No, just kidding. Any comments?
So we would need to change that verbiage within the consent agenda and then
Karen to
approve.
Jonathan, right. Just make a motion to appoint Jonathan instead of Karen.
Or remove it from the consent agenda. I say remove it from the consent agenda, we're going to talk about it.
And move it to the planning board report.
Yes. So E will become, 9E will become the planning board seat 2.
All right.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda without one change.
We will be arm wrestling.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. All right. So that brings us to the Parks and Rec report, but no one here. So we just keep going.
There's a couple things under Parks and Rec that I'd like to make note of. As a Parks and Rec liaison is one, I was supposed to leave here today with an update on the grant, which is a little further down the agenda. The main thing was that John wanted me to press council that we need to repair the 2 bridges below the dam prior to the work being done on the dam. And he supplied Kathy with these materials, which is well under budget. And so we can get started on that and have that work completed before we do the repairs to the dam at Dogwood Park.
And he has that money in his budget now, right?
Yes.
This fiscal year?
It's like a $7,000 line item, and we're only going to be spending just over $1,000. I mean, it's $1,063 or something in that category. So I'd like council to approve the purchase of the lumber to repair the 2 bridges below the dam.
And it was how much, Kathy?
Are you asking me, Kathy?
Yeah.
I saw where he requested a quote today. We do have about 7,000 in there, so I think if council approves it not to exceed 1,500 would be sufficient. If it exceeds that, we'll bring it back.
The lumber plus the hardware that's going to be required will be well under 1,100.
And
So,
under 15 would be sufficient.
Okay, so we need a motion for,
motion to approve the purchase of the lumber to do repairs to the 2 dams below, 2 bridges below the dam, not to exceed $1,500.
do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Do we need this in form of a motion? As long as, I mean, with it being within his line, with it being within his budget on that line item?
It is, but when we spend over $1,000 on purchases, it's kind of a fine line because we're not buying a thing, but it does cover us. But no, we don't really have to because he's buying pieces and parts of things that do not exceed
Okay,
$7,000.
that's fine.
So it's fine that we did. We didn't really have to.
Okay.
All in favor? Are you unanimous? We do not have an announcement yet about, and it's not $250,000, it's like 900,000.
926,000.
Yeah, so it's almost $1 million. We do not, we were supposed to find out on April 8th. Today is April 8th, and we do not know.
We looked it up, not there.
Also, since you brought this up now, the original number I was told is that it was going to be a 70-30 split on the grant,
Yes.
and then it was changed to a 35-65. Can you confirm that the percentages have changed on the matching part of the grant?
I have not heard that.
I'd like to get clarification when we finally do.
That 5%'s not that big of a deal when you're talking $350,000.
I agree, but Parks and Rec wanted me to clarify that from the FEMA grant.
If we do not get the grant, we are officially broke. So, that'll be fun.
Well, originally we thought it was going to be a 100% grant, then we found out it was going to be a matching grant, and then the percentage of the match has changed, and I wanted to get clarification on that tonight. If we can, I
I
understand.
haven't heard
I'd like to
anything
get,
about the match change. Who told you that?
It came up at the last Parks and Rec meeting.
I haven't heard anything about a match change. Have you, Kathy?
I have not. I may have put 35 on that preliminary budget, just tossing something out there, but I can look.
When we hear back from the grant people, which was supposed to be today, or deadline was today, when we do hear back from them, please clarify the matching percentage.
And then Pat and I will be meeting with a representative from the North Carolina League of Municipalities as part of some of their ARP COVID funding. There's an agency that's going to work with the Parks and Rec Committee to apply for grants and to find out what grants are out there for them. So hopefully we will get a meeting with her this month. And then they are supposed to meet in May to review the responses to the RFP application. So,
Another item under the Parks and Rec, for those of you who don't know, when we irrigate the grass in the summer, we have an irrigation system that pulls water from the pond. When we go to do the repairs for the dam, the pond is going to have to be drained, which means we don't have water for irrigation. We're looking into different options to either temporarily use city water to irrigate the park, not irrigate the park, or tie into a hydrant at the bottom of the driveway and run a line up to charge the irrigation system. So there's going to be some logistics that need to be worked out, but since we don't have the timeline yet on the repairs to the dam, I don't think there's anything pressing, but just
and our
Like to see-
engineer said she would work with John closely to help him figure it out. So,
so there's also an option of doing a copper dam temporarily to keep the fish alive and the turtles to while the rest of the dam work was being done, and we could still draw from that. But all things that have to be considered when doing a project of this size, and just want to make sure everybody's aware that we irrigated with the pond.
So why is this a Parks and Rec item and not just a John staff item and council item? I mean, I'm just questioning it because it's really just a council decision. We have a staff member. I don't really understand the Parks and Rec being involved in just maintenance functions.
Well,
Just a
things-
question.
It affects things like events.
But there's no plan.
Well, when the work begins on the dam, they're going to have to drain the pond and let it do nothing for 8 months.
I
dries
understand
out.
all about that, but
And-
I don't understand how Parks and Rec need to bother themselves with it. That's all.
It affects the park.
But they're the Parks and Rec, more the event people, now that we have a maintenance person. We didn't have a maintenance person in that see.
that is an idea that maybe we break it into Parks and Rec committee report and a Parks and Rec staff, or a
Yeah,
Parks and Rec
like Parks
staff report.
Park staff report.
Because there are things that they won't decide on. All right, anything else for the park, Mike?
The other thing that was the park master plan, the RFP update. They were hoping to get started on that, and we would need a motion from council to have Kathy start to put that out to bid.
It's out there.
It's been
Is
out
it-
to
Been out
bid.
there since last
I'm
month.
sorry.
Yeah, they're reviewing it in May. The bids.
What you just said.
Why did I think we had put it out to bid then?
It's out there. There's
My
no-
apologies,
there's no
then. I
response.
thought we were still,
If
my
you-
correction, my mistake.
If you read the agenda comments, we only received one call this month. It was put out prematurely when I thought Park and Rec had given it to me to finish it up. We had 4 responses, people that were just interested in it. So I pulled it back, it went back to Park and Rec, came back to council the next month. I let those 4 people know that we were now soliciting bids. I had one person to call, and he said that his resources were valuable and that he just wouldn't even touch anything under $55,000. But he's the only call, the only email, the only inquiry that we've had.
Thanks for the clarification.
All right, so anything else for the park?
No, ma'am.
All right, so that brings us to our Union County Sheriff's Office presentation. So if you'll come up and, I lied, that brings, I'm sorry. Sorry, it brings us to Deb. Sorry, 5C. I added her and then forgot her again.
I'll be
Sorry,
quick.
Deb. Sorry.
5C?
Okay, the dogwood trees, or dogwood grove, as you put it, they are ready for a sort of unveiling ceremony Saturday at 2 o'clock. It's just going to be for sponsors. It's not really a thing that we've opened to the public because, you know, if all the sponsors come, that's like 25 and then their families, and so it would just be so crowded. So we're just inviting sponsors and, you know, and the council. But
Do you need any kind of PA system or anything?
no, I mean, I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
I would hope not. We sold 3 trees today. Those plaques have been put out, and I tell you what, those plaques really drew a lot of attention. And so we sold 3 today, plus a $100 donation. So that was really nice. The plaques look great. There's only now 3 trees left that have not been sold, and so I'm going to go out there and tie a yellow ribbon around the 3 that have not been sold.
I've got one, I think, for you.
I've got 2 trees left to sold. So the art show, all of the artwork is in the conference room, ready to be judged. We have to do it this week because Wesley Chapel Elementary School, who's taking part for the first time this year in the art contest, they're coming up next week to be judged. So we need to get on those. Please try to get those judged by Friday.
Done.
And the Newtown Elementary School art show will be on the 13th of May 13th at 5:30. It's prior to our meeting. And then the Wesley Chapel one will be prior to the planning board meeting at May 20th at 5:30.
Deb, on the Dogwood Grove dedication, do you need tables or chairs or anything set up?
No, it's going to be just, people are going to want to walk around and look. We're not doing a program or a presentation. Amanda's going to say a few comments and, you know, and then just, it's just very, it's nothing.
Just,
But I appreciate you asking. I appreciate your offer to help.
I'm the tables and chairs guy.
Not you get a new hip.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's what you told us about.
Yeah.
It's not taking that many hits.
That's it.
Okay, all right.
Unless you have any
Now
questions.
it's our turn.
My turn now?
Yes, sir. Come on up.
All right, hold on one moment, let me get his presentation.
He can introduce himself to all this.
Where's that thing that makes the whole thing big?
Hopefully, Ms. Queen can get that PowerPoint up and running.
This thing is water.
So while she's working on that, by way of introduction, I'm Tony Underwood. I'm the Chief Deputy of Operations for the Sheriff's Office. And the other 2 gentlemen with me, it's Captain Wes Tyson. He's our Operations Captain, and then next to him is Lieutenant Sean Mayhew. Lieutenant Mayhew is our Special Operations Bureau Supervisor. So essentially, all of our contract deputies, which would include Deputy Wicker, who's assigned here to Wesley Chapel, Lieutenant Mayhew is his direct supervisor. And then Captain Mayhew oversees all of our patrol operations, which includes Special Operations Bureau. So essentially, what we like to do is make this presentation available to all of our towns that contract for our services once a year. If you want to see the numbers and sort of what I like to call it is our end-of-year report card, is how are we doing? And it also gives, you know, the council, the mayor, an opportunity to evaluate your needs. If we're doing, you know, effectively what we're providing is what you hope for, that the numbers reflect, you know, what they should, as far as keeping crime low, and we're answering those calls for service as quickly as we would expect those calls to be answered. So it gives you an opportunity to sort of assess your needs as you continue to grow and move forward. So in the interest of time, this is a comprehensive slideshow. I think there's maybe 27 or 28 total slides, but I'm going to go past the slides that are county-wide statistics, which essentially provide context as an agency county-wide, and so I'm going to move straight to the Wesley Chapel portion of the program, but it is available, if you want to look at it later. And certainly with any questions you have, please ask them, because we want to make sure you've got the information that you need to make decisions. So if you would, Ms. Queen, please move to the next slide. So this just kind of gives you an idea. These are the 5 municipalities within Union County that contract through the Sheriff's Office for their law enforcement services. Our largest, obviously, is Indian Trail. They currently have 36 employees that are employed by the Sheriff's Office but assigned to Indian Trail. We have 3 that are serving our Weddington community, 2 deputies in Lake Park, 2 currently in Marvin, and just 1 here in Wesley Chapel. So that's sort of how that is structured. But Indian Trail, I believe, is currently the largest town or municipality in the state of North Carolina that contracts law enforcement services through the Sheriff's Office. And so because of their growth, they continue to look at adding more resources as needed. But we think we've got a pretty good situation going there in Indian Trail. So if you would, the next slide, please. So this gives you the breakdown that we have available to us with the population of all of our municipalities in Union County. And those numbers with Monroe having over 35,000, and then you see in the right-hand column, Indian Trail's latest population figure was more than 43,000 individuals, and they're budgeted just under $6 million a year for those 34 sworn officers and then other civilian personnel assigned there. You see Wesley Chapel, there are about 9,300 individuals, and that annual cost of $116,950. That was last year's figure for that one contract deputy here. So if you would go to the next slide, please. Now there is a slight increase in the FY25 budget year for those services. Hopefully you received some correspondence from our county finance about that. There's a slight increase, about 8.7%, I believe, at Wesley Chapel. Some of that was due to a salary increase, long overdue, for some of our personnel, as well as equipment costs that have gone up. A lot of those equipment cost increases are beyond our control. But one of the things we've done internally to try to lower that cost to our municipalities is, as you well know, that 90% cost that you're responsible for to the county. Some of those equipment costs are amortized. There's a different schedule for the replacement of that equipment, specifically the vehicle being the most expensive piece of equipment that's issued. We're now extending that vehicle from a 4-year amortization schedule to 5 years. Reason being, those costs to us, the baseline costs, have gone up significantly. And so no matter what platform of vehicle we try to purchase, it's gone up across the board, if we can even get them. So we're now trying to extend the life of those vehicles and to reduce that cost to some of the towns as best we can. So that does offset it a little bit. So I think that's the approximated cost. That's why there's an asterisk there for the next fiscal year. You're looking at about $127,733 as of now. Now that doesn't include what may happen in the budget that the county hasn't yet voted on for the July budget year. Any questions on some of that equipment in particular? Because I think on the next slide it kind of breaks down what some of those costs look like that are built in within those costs. If you could go, there you go, right there. That just kind of gives you an idea. That's certainly not all of the equipment. That's just some of the items that they're issued. And if you see the amortization years in that middle column on the right where it says quantity, for example, the patrol rifle with accessories is about a $2,400 purchase, but that's a 15-year replacement schedule. So it equals out to about $160 a year that's factored into that budget cost. The radios are about a $6,000 radio. It's a 5-year replacement at about $1,200 per year. Those are just some examples. The really neat thing at the bottom, in that bottom rectangle, shows you the additional services provided by the sheriff's office that's included within your contract. So naturally, if you have a significant event, a major crime, something that happens within the township, you're going to get the benefit of all of our detectives. You already get, the animal services piece, our SWAT team, mobile field force if necessary, but all these other components are part of that are factored into that contract cost. So next one. Yes, ma'am.
About how much I know it varies by experience and stuff, but about what is the average deputy salary?
Salary? We just raised it with the part one. They're doing a comp and class study. There's a two-part process, and the first part of that was just funded. They got our starting salaries from $44,092 a year to right now it's just over $51,000. That's a starting salary for a sworn deputy, and it's the same for a detention officer. Now that may sound, okay, that's a reasonable salary, but in our world it's not anymore. When we're competing against a lot of the other agencies in Mecklenburg County that are significantly higher, and they're offering signing bonuses and other incentives for them to come to work there. So the county recognized that we were starting to lose people to some of these other surrounding agencies for better opportunities, better paying jobs. And so finally they're answering the call, but it costs money. We have 363 employees. So if you raise it for some, it impacts the whole county. So we have to be very responsible in how they do that. But it's currently about 51, a little over 51.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So these are what it looks like if you guys can see that. I know you're looking behind you, but these are the patrol events. These are essentially the calls that were either dispatched or were self-initiated calls. And if you look, that very bottom line is the 2023 numbers. There are different color codes there. The 257 in the blue, those are calls for service that were handled directly by the Wesley Chapel deputy. And so he essentially answered a little over 13% of the total calls dispatched to this particular zone. So there was a total of 1,867 calls that were dispatched through our 911, our CCOM, our communications dispatch, and he answered 257 of those calls. Now, what you see in that gray column, yes ma'am?
You said 1867 was dispatch?
Of total calls, yes ma'am.
This number?
Right.
Was total dispatch calls, and he did 257 of these?
Correct.
So these don't add together to be that?
No.
Okay.
So what you're getting at is the 5,004 is the self-initiated call events. So those are essentially what we take great pride in. That is your crime reduction strategy. That is our proactive law enforcement philosophy that Sheriff Kathy has instilled upon our agency, our deputies. That's what these guys do, is they manage that. We encourage our deputies to be out here looking for suspicious activity, talking to people, stopping cars, doing business checks, driving through neighborhoods, doing residential preventive patrols, being seen, highly visible. Not sitting up here eating, but going out here being proactive, looking for suspicious, activity, stopping cars, taking appropriate action. That's your crime prevention strategy. That's where we keep our numbers low in this county. That's why our crime stats are very low. As a whole, for a community this size, it's very, very low compared to state and national average for a community our size. Does that answer your question, Ms. Bailey?
Yeah, so if I'm reading this right, it tells me that the number of calls by the deputy has been fairly consistent between 200 and 260-ish,
Correct.
give or take. I don't have a calculator with me. But the total calls have been, again, fairly consistent between 1,700 and 1,900, not huge swings or spikes, but pretty flat. But the more variability in some of the self-initiated.
That's correct.
And I assume some of that self-initiated gets impacted if they're called out of the town, or there's, I don't know, we seem to have a lot of chases of people leaving through the county and ended up in lakes and stuff.
That does happen.
So I assume that would
That does happen.
take away from some of that other opportunity.
It does, but we are proud of the work that they do, and I think, and that's why we're really like to highlight what that means when I say self-initiated events. That means they're out actually working. They may not actually be dealing with someone, but they're being visible. They're out in the parking lots, they're talking to people, running tags, they're looking for anything that's an indication of a potential crime in progress. Stolen vehicle, stolen tags, any of that type of stuff. So if you could go to the next slide. Traffic accidents, this is a big deal. This is a significant issue throughout Union County, but you will see to the far right, there's a blue column of 63. Those were the calls that were handled, the accidents investigated by your deputy in Wesley Chapel. He investigated 63 of the total 317 accidents that were handled by any law enforcement in Wesley Chapel in 2023. Accidents are time-consuming. It's a major headache for all of anyone on the road. It bottlenecks traffic. It's a major inconvenience. So we do our best to get the roads cleared as quickly as we can. But that's a bigger issue countywide, is the number of accidents that we handle. More people on the road, more distracted drivers than ever before. Everybody's in a hurry. Unfortunately, there's a lot of accidents. So we try to clear those as quickly as we can.
Do we have some data? I mean, I don't know, but I just need to go to DOT to get the data on the accidents of what that number is and how, and because what I'm thinking, to your point, one, people don't understand speed limits.
No.
There's so many huge dump trucks that live off our road, so huge dump trucks flying and around and everywhere
Sure.
else. Nobody has any patience to wait for a light or a stop sign or anything else. And so just interested because we've had presented money for a roundabout at Potter and Potter, a roundabout at 84 and Potter, Newtown, and everything else because these are problem sites. But I think we might be losing sight of, are there other problem areas? Or
We can
situations
pull that
that-
data. We have a crime analyst. That's where we get these numbers from within our agency. They can easily pull any stats you want. Anything that's dispatched through our 911 center, we can get that information for you.
And when you're taking those stats, do you by chance get information on if the person, I'm not just talking traffic, but the person who's cited, for whatever reason, their municipality residence?
Good question. Very good question. We just talked about that not too long ago. We can. I wouldn't necessarily affirm to its accuracy. It's fairly accurate, but a lot of times the information that's entered, a lot of our officers now, they have the computers in the cars, they do e-citations done electronically. Sometimes, and Captain, correct me if I'm wrong, but if they pull up a person's name, it may automatically upload the data fields, like to include the address. It's not necessarily capturing the location of the offense. It may show their home address, and that's not where the offense occurred, where the speeding violation occurred. So we've tried to correct that. We try to encourage people to go back and double check before they send that and enter it. But we're fairly close on it, if you're looking for the number of speeding
Because-
violations.
Yeah, it's like understanding how many of the tickets and citations are happening in Wesley Chapel,
Sure.
but are not Wesley Chapel residents,
And that's true.
right? I suspect it's a pretty large
There's a lot
number.
of traffic that passes
Because
through.
we are a pass-through.
You're a thoroughfare.
But also being able to understand that a person's address doesn't tell anything about the municipality.
Right,
My mailing address is Matthews.
right.
I don't
Yeah, mine's Monroe, so.
Anyway, so we pretty much covered that.
Sure, sure.
But, no, and I can understand where all the databases are situated and all that. But all that data's out there somewhere in
It is.
the internet.
It is, and we're, I mean, there's a slight margin of error on the accuracy of maybe a small percentage. you
Yeah,
know,
and I guess
error.
somebody hasn't updated their license,
Right.
because they moved or whatever.
But you're just looking for the violations that are occurring.
I kind of want to know how much of the work you guys are doing in Wesley Chapel is because of bad guys that live in Wesley Chapel, as opposed to,
Or if there are other roads we should be considering for future
Right.
improvement.
yeah, because I suspect a lot of it is passed through, and so it's like, is there something different that's needed? It's not 55 miles an hour.
I've got a question that kind of segues into exactly what you're talking about. I was going to ask it later, but I think this is the more appropriate time. Separate from traffic accidents, the general question I had was when you have an incident where you have to arrest somebody, let's say for drugs or shoplifting or whatever the more serious crimes are, do we have any stats as far as whether those are residents from Wesley Chapel or from outside the county or outside the municipality?
We can get that.
Because I think
Easily pull that for you.
we did this once about 8 years ago, and I thought that the interesting statistics was if you had somebody who was a habitual shoplifter at Target, for example,
Right.
where were they coming from? Mecklenburg County, Union County, someplace else?
Sure.
Or that I've even seen these professional groups that just travel like gypsies that go
They do.
from place to place. The other notation I've got here is that I think from talking with people at the National Night Out event and just talking with people in general, you guys are being commended because I think that the low crime rate in Union County is why so many of us want to live here.
Sure.
So many of us want to live not only in Union County, but in Wesley Chapel
Right.
specifically. We feel safe going to the store, we feel safe coming here. We don't have to worry about some of the, what some of the bigger cities are having problems with. And I think, to your question, is when we do have crime or problems, is it coming from our residents or is it coming from outside Wesley Chapel or outside of Union County? And if so, what do we do about that?
Well, I mean, to give you statistics is the percentage of offenders who are from within Union County, specifically Wesley Chapel, or are they coming from other communities like Charlotte or elsewhere? We see a blend, and it depends on the type of offense. We do have a lot of individuals who are part of organized crime gangs. There's a lot of gang activity, juvenile gang activity that are really a huge problem for everybody, not just here, but everywhere. They're going around, they're doing a lot of these car break-ins. Some of your crime stats that you're going to see a property crime increase slightly is largely due to juvenile offenders. And they're going around and they're pulling door handles. If there are unlocked cars, they're going to go in. That's 100% guaranteed. And whatever is anything of value whatsoever, they're going to take.
Well, we had that issue at Dogwood Park where people were going to walk their dogs, leaving their purse on the front seat of the car, come back, the windows
They were
smashed,
smashing them.
and the purse was gone. Since we installed the flock system, it's been almost a year. I think we've only had a single incident.
It's helped.
It's helped tremendously, but that one single incident was still, a red mark on
Sure.
our scorecard, and I'm not sure where we ended up with that.
Right.
I'd like to see us, for the general public to know that one, crime is down, specifically it's safe to go to the park, and two, the one incident that we did have is being followed up on.
Right. Right.
And I also think just knowing and understanding juvenile crimes or gangs or whatever are roamers. And so in a lot of cases, you just need to be aware of that type of activity that's happening because it's going to be happening anywhere and everywhere. Right?
It is.
And typically, and I tell this to people all the time, when there's a problem, they'll call 911.
Right.
They'll call for an ambulance.
Mhm.
They'll call for the fire department. Nobody ever has an emergency and say, quick, call a politician. They just don't do that.
Right.
We're the people that they point fingers at after the fact.
Right.
Why didn't you have more resources? Why didn't you have more of this? Why didn't you have more of that? And I want to make sure that we're doing our part to support you.
Sure. Well, and I'm glad you said that because we want to support you. And we're going to offer a recommendation and based on the numbers, but I want to go through the remainder of this and then certainly if there are questions and
Can I
comments.
ask you one more question?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know, so we pay our Wesley Chapel taxes.
Right.
We also pay, our residents pay about $600,000 in separate taxes to, so we pay, $125 or $120 for Brandon and
Right.
$600,000 in regular taxes to
Mhm.
the sheriff's office. So are the remainder of these calls, are they mostly being handled by the zone deputies that
Yes.
are covered by, and how many, I guess I'm trying to figure out like a breakdown of how many deputies per person in the county, or how many zone, like, because we do have so many donut holes, right? So
We
like
do.
if I'm in Wesley Oaks and I don't live in Wesley Chapel, I'm still benefiting from,
Well, when you go to the next slide, and that'll address some of what I think we're talking about or alluding to is on this particular slide, because you're going to see, these are our contract towns, and the percentage of calls answered by those dedicated officers assigned to those respective municipalities. In particular, on the bottom is Wesley Chapel, 13.77%, that was 2023, of total calls dispatched in our Zone 12 Wesley Chapel area was answered by your dedicated deputy. That's over 86% lapse in dedicated coverage. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to get a deputy to respond. They're coming. It just may be that the response time is going to be longer. And that's a concern to us, especially given the makeup of Wesley Chapel with the strong presence of retail and restaurants and Target and some of your stores and a park. What we like to say, and one of the philosophies we like to share, is you're paying for prevention. We don't want to react after it's too late and we're trying to catch up to stop the increase in crime. We like to keep it from ever happening. So that strong visibility works. As you saw in those self-initiated calls, it works. It tells people, don't come here, because we're going to take you to jail. And in this county, we have a district attorney's office that works very closely with us. We have judges that work very closely with us. They will hold you accountable. It's not a catch and release in Union County. So we try to instill that in people, that you may do that stuff in other jurisdictions, but if you do it here, you're going to jail. And so that's our philosophy, and we believe in that proactive police work because it works. It keeps people feeling safe in their homes, where they should feel safe. And not saying we don't have crime, but we want to prevent as much of it as we possibly can. But that stat, in my opinion, tells us a little bit of a story, but it's just for you guys to think about and what your thoughts may be. That's why we wanted to give you this information, just let you digest it. And any other numbers you want, we're going to get that for you as well. And again, that's the same information we just talked about. It's just in a pie chart and just kind of shows, what that may look like. But here's your response time. And in 2023, this is the Wesley Chapel specific car. There was an increase in nearly average 3 minutes per call, an increase in response for him getting from time of dispatch to time of arrival. So I couldn't tell you exactly why that increase is there and why it's so much, other than whether it was traffic related or he's on other calls. I don't really know. But sometimes he does, when he's on duty, he's only working 40 hours a week, he's getting multiple calls backed up, and he may be on one before he clear that to get to the next one. So it is a concern, especially during peak hours, with the volume of traffic that's coming through here. If you would, the next slide. And these are your total incident reports that were in our Zone 12, our Wesley Chapel zone from last year. These are our Part 1 and Part 2 crimes. The Part 1 crimes are in blue. Those are your more serious offenses, but it would include your breaking, entering, and larcenies, and that's why there's 40 of those. And then 189 Part 2 crimes, your less serious offenses, your shopliftings, some of your trespass calls, other calls for service that would have been captured within that 189. DWI arrest, there were 6 unfortunate folks in 2023 in Wesley Chapel who met some of our fine traffic officers, and that's what we got.
And so that, those 6, again, I think it would help us tremendously if we know those people were pulled over as they were passing through Wesley Chapel, or if they lived in Wesley Chapel.
Although I will tell you from WUMA meetings, they say the same thing about us, right? Like, our residents drive through their town,
And
we
that's
drive
true.
through Indian Trail, like, you can't really, it doesn't really matter where the people are coming from. 'Cause
It's like it's
we are going everywhere too.
like it's a Union County problem, not a town problem.
Well, I had a couple questions and notations here from the presentation. One question I had was, I know that there's some municipalities, for example, Waxhaw has their own private police force, as well as, I believe, Monroe.
There are 5 police agencies in the county.
Okay.
Waxhaw, Stallings, Monroe, obviously the sheriff's office, and then Wigan Police and Marshall Police.
So if somebody has an emergency and they're down 911, how do you know, based on where their location is, who's going to show up, whether it's a Union County deputy, a Waxhaw deputy, a Monroe deputy? Who makes that decision?
CCOM, communications, it's dispatched based on their jurisdiction. When they pull it up in the car, if they know the address, it automatically tells you the agency, the law enforcement agency, the fire service, EMS, and it's broken down by zone, so they know who to dispatch that call to. Plus, they're looking to see who's available within that area. It depends on what type of call it is. Is it a high priority call, or is it just somebody wanting to report? It's not a primary progress, I just need a report, it's not an urgency. It depends on what type of call it is.
All right. Just for those on the council that don't know, or maybe those in the audience, when we first brought on our contract deputy in Wesley Chapel, we had offset the cost of the deputy with a business license fee that we were charging local businesses like Target, and Harris Teeter, and some of the other local businesses to offset the cost for our contract deputy.
Sure.
And the state decided that we were no longer allowed to do that,
Okay.
and they did away with privilege licenses. We kept our contract deputy on and absorbed the cost into our day-to-day budget, which is, I'm sure you know, is not as high as it is in some of the other municipalities. Our tax rate has actually gone down consistently to stay relatively neutral in Wesley Chapel, even with the contract deputy. So the only way I see us bringing on more deputies is if we have to tell the residents of Wesley Chapel they have to pay more in taxes. Not a popular thing for politicians to tell them. It's a hard truth, but that is the case. But I want to also go on the record to make sure people know that even though Brandon only responded to roughly 13% of the calls in Wesley Chapel that required Union County deputies, the other 87% were still responded to.
They are.
So they will get someone to show up at their incident, just maybe not as quickly as if there's more contract deputies.
Which kind of leads into Amanda's point of kind of a double taxation. If residents are already paying taxes for sheriff's coverage, and then we have to raise taxes to get more sheriff's coverage, or deputy coverage, excuse me.
Yeah,
It's-
I do
it's,
hear that a lot from residents. They're like, I already pay my Union County taxes, why do I have to pay more to Wesley Chapel just to have a contract deputy? But there are also municipalities out there like Mineral Springs, they don't have their own private police force, and they don't have a contract deputy. But again, if somebody in Mineral Springs calls 911, someone's going to show up.
Somebody's coming, that's correct.
I have a question. So the county, we have asked for years for the county to update its noise ordinance. And
Okay.
it is per county staff, they are in the process of, has the sheriff's office reviewed that yet for enforceability?
On our ordinances,
The new county noise or nuisance ordinance that they are currently apparently on the final legs of getting approved.
that's a good question. I know a lot of those ordinances have been looked at by county staff, county legal. I don't know specifically where the noise ordinance or some of those nuisance ordinances are in review. I don't know that there's been a drastic change in any of the county ordinances. And I know some of the other municipalities have their own, unique ordinances.
But most municipalities have adopted the county's noise ordinance
Correct.
because we rely on the sheriff's office to enforce it. And what a lot of municipalities are finding is there's no teeth in it, because there's no
There's not.
measurable
It's very
decibels.
hard.
So I just wondered if you had had a chance to review it or
I haven't,
If I need to
I
make
haven't
sure.
recently,
Okay.
but I know in Captain Tyson, you might can answer this more so, but the noise ordinance is it's a difficult one to enforce.
Well, in talking with Lee at the county, he said this is the worst ordinance we had, and this goes back a couple of years. He said that this is the worst ordinance we had in the county. I said it needs to be updated, he agreed, but without getting directive from the county commissioners, there wasn't much you could do. So our second,
But we're past that now, they
Right.
are reviewing it. So why does it make it hard to enforce?
It's hard to determine unless you're clearly outside the time of day. I think, because I believe there's some language in there about the time of day when it's deemed to be in violation if it's above a certain sound decibel. But a lot of times when we respond to those calls, we ask them to turn it down, they comply. And then sometimes you have to come back 30 minutes later and they're doing it again. And that's when you find yourself in a better position to take some type of enforcement action.
There's also no decibel level specified in the law.
Right,
Yeah,
but we are talking about, we have asked the county to put in a decibel level.
right.
So that's why I wanted to know if you have seen it updated. If not, I'll get with Lee. So we need to make sure that the sheriff's office can enforce what we are asking
Sure.
to change. So just because we have some residents here, if you have a problem with the noise ordinance, so your neighbor's playing music really loud or doing something obnoxious, what should our residents do?
Call 911.
Call 911?
Call 911 or call that non-emergency number. We're still going to come and we're going to talk with them.
Right.
And and sometimes they'll comply. Sometimes they'll voluntarily not realize that it's bothering other people. And sometimes they will comply, other times not.
And other issues like riding golf carts and ATVs on roads, like what should a resident do?
Do you have an ordinance against that?
They cannot be riding ATVs that are on the streets.
We don't have an ordinance that allows you
Right.
to ride a golf
Okay.
cart or an ATV on any.
They can just call it in and report it.
So call
Call
911?
it in and report it. Any suspected violation, you will.
Are ring bell videos accepted as evidence?
Sir, this is not dialogue between residents.
I know, but
and
you're on the subject, so I didn't want to miss out.
Okay, but I think that's
I'm sorry,
something that you
Jack.
should notify the sheriff's office for.
I'll talk to you here in just a minute.
All right.
So I just want to make sure that like our residents know
Sure.
clearly what they should do.
Because
Because I get calls and I can't
Sure.
go out and enforce it, so.
Just call it in. And that's what we're out there for. Let us come take a look at it and see if we can identify the situation and find out if there's a statute or otherwise an ordinance that's potentially in violation, and we'll address it.
And so repeated calls can help you sometimes isolate the
Sure.
problem and address
A lot of
it.
times on those calls, like an ATV or somebody golf cart in the road, by the time you get there, they're gone.
Right.
But we'll still come, but that doesn't mean you're gonna find the person who was doing it, because usually they're gone by the time they get on scene. Unless the person knows who it was that was doing it.
And like if they have video or evidence, do you take that into account?
That helps.
Okay,
We
so
will.
that helps, okay.
Sure.
I was noticing of the 300 some odd accidents that 63 were responded to by Brandon. Who responds to the others? Because I didn't realize that the sheriff's office responded to accidents on major roads. I thought that it was only highway patrol.
I think that's
There are
unique
so
to
few
you.
highway patrol that they had to ask the
You
sheriff's
guys
office
get
to
it. I
step
mean,
in.
that is exactly because you are correct, that in a lot of counties, a lot of sheriff's offices don't answer accident calls.
Right.
But our sheriff, he wanted to start that many years ago. He himself being a retired state trooper, but we recognize the deficiency in state troopers assigned to this county. If we don't, we're there directing traffic anyway.
Right.
And it may take hours before an available trooper can get to that call. If it's a fatality, the patrol's still going to handle that. If it's a fatal accident or an accident with serious injury, we're going to try to get a trooper on scene to handle it. But if it's just property damage, somebody needs to report 2 cars ran into each other, somebody hit a deer, something like that, we're going to handle those calls. Assume somebody's on duty to handle it. But if it's not your assigned deputy and another deputy's available, we have one deputy who I think led the state last year with a number of accident reports countywide. I think he's done it like several years straight. That's all he does. Is he listens up for accidents, he responds to them across the whole county. He gets a lot of them right here as well.
So is Sonny County looking at any of the civilian accident investigations?
No. We're just not.
Asking another question for a resident.
Sorry, we're not going that way.
A complaint I have heard is that a neighbor smokes weed every day, and it is impacting their quality of life because they smell it all the time.
Okay,
Is there any help for said resident?
call it in.
Call it in?
Sure. It's still illegal.
Not if it's medical marijuana? Have we got such a-
Well, if they have a medical marijuana card, but it still gives us a basis to address that, because it is illegal.
So if you smell it, you can
Sure.
approach.
I think most medical marijuana is pills.
No.
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 No, really?
The other question I have for you on the flock system, which we invested in, is that something that's caught on and more people are bringing in on the municipality? Is it helping?
Oh, yes.
Okay, because I mean,
It's
we haven't caught
huge
any necessarily bad guys, but I don't know if that's information you can share with us, that our investment in those flock cameras have made a
You won't
difference.
regret it. I mean, we have a network of them, but we have so many that we as a county have invested in that are strategically located throughout the county. And we're tied into a network of other ones, and we, won't go into details because some of these matters are still pending trial, but it has been instrumental in solving some major crimes because of not just here, but elsewhere, the flock camera system. When you start looking for a path, somebody may have traveled and hit this camera, that camera, and then it could lead them straight to a crime scene or something. They're very beneficial, and we have access to that. If there's a stolen license plate and it hits like that, immediately our deputies get an immediate alert on that. They know exactly where it is. It's pretty much real time. They start looking for it.
Let me ask one more question, if you don't mind. You were saying earlier that the reports that are filled out have information that you could feasibly get. The thing that when the deputy reports that we get are basically like wreck 42, break-ins 3, and it doesn't really
Sure.
tell me anything. Is it feasible that we could find out? I don't need to know addresses, but I'd like to know what neighborhoods are being broken into,
That's
what stores were that kind of stuff. Where are the accidents happening? Are they happening up here? Are they happening down there? So it's those kind of things. I don't need to know people's addresses, but the general location, is that something that could be added to these crime reports?
We could.
I mean, I don't need all of them,
Sure.
but I'm talking like accidents, break-ins,
Right.
that kind of stuff.
Some of that we could easily, if Deputy Wicker is the deputy who's
Well, he
answering-
offered to change it.
he knows the calls he's answering. He can tell you if there's a hot spot over here. He knows that. But he's a lot of times pulling the numbers from the same analysts that I've relied upon for this information. But if you wanted specifics, like is there an area where we've seen an uptick in car break-ins, whether it be a neighborhood over here or on the south side of Highway 84, he can tell you that. But any other stats you want, Ms. Fuller, you have my email. Please email me. I will get you that information.
And I will email you Ms. Bailey's request about
Okay.
the accident,
Please, yes, I'll get you
so
that.
we remember.
Sure.
I've got one more
I had
thing.
a question too, now I forgot it. Go ahead, I'll try to remember now.
Okay. We have events from time to time, and not talking about just National Night Out. We have events over at the park, we have events around town. I really want to put Brandon front and center with the residents to say, this is our guy. This is the guy who will protect you in your school, in your home, in your business. But typically, he doesn't work events that we have in Weston Chapel. He usually lets some other deputy get paid for it. And we can't seem to get Brandon to come to work events in our town that we pay for. I'm just trying to figure out why that is.
He's come to some of the ones
The
we've done.
last one he
Yeah.
couldn't come to because he was on a cruise for his anniversary, which I think is a valid.
But he came, during he comes to some of them on the weekend.
But you got to keep in mind, and I don't know when some of the events are, but he's scheduled to work a certain number of hours. And if it's after hours, and if it's another event that our Community Services Bureau is handling, and they're assigning other deputies to handle that event, because we do a lot of like the National Nights Out across the county, and it's just a matter of we asked, we need 5, at this location, 5 here, and they just kind of split those responsibilities. You can't necessarily be everywhere at the same time. But
My frustration was, for example, every year we have the Halloween event at the park. And we know what date it's going to be months in advance, usually 6-8 months in advance. And we say, Brandon, we'd like you to come and be the face of Wesley Chapel as far as the sheriff's representative. We don't want you directing traffic. We don't want you blocking the bottom of the drive. We want you in the park meeting residents.
Sure.
And,
since we have asked that of him, he has came more regularly.
okay, well, I don't remember it specifically, but I'm just hoping that we can do more, we can do a better job getting Brandon kind of meshing with the residents here. We have big events.
I definitely don't want him to attract that.
No, I don't want to do a
I want
traffic. I
him
want to,
just to be walking around.
I want to walking around, seeing the people that come to our events, being the face of Wesley Chapel safety.
Council, I think this is probably a conversation that we need to have with Officer Mayhew if we've got issues with scheduling, Brandon. I know Officer Underwood would put you on the spot with a lot of questions you probably
fine.
were not ready for. And they charged me with being the official timekeeper of
Yes,
council. And,
Well, thank you.
yes, and, we've got a lot more to discuss.
Just
So,
one more
I
question.
have 2 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
2 questions. I'll make it quick, I promise. Can you find out for me the average number of resident to deputy ratio,
Countywide, or,
or service by Union County? Like,
sure.
and if I live in Indian Trail, do I pay an additional tax to the sheriff's office? Or do I pay just for the contract deputies? Like, I want to be clear on like cost, like Wesley Chapel, Weddington, Marvin, Lake Park, we pay our county taxes
Right.
and we pay our contract deputy taxes. If I live in Indian Trail, do I pay both?
You do. As does Monroe, as does Waxhaw, all the same other municipalities have their own dedicated police department. They also pay county taxes and their town taxes.
Same rate?
Yes.
So then maybe a countywide across the board breakdown of resident to Union County Sheriff's Officer.
Okay.
I'll put that in my
Sure. Okay. We can get it. We'll try to get it.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, no, thank y'all.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Anything further?
Be safe.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you, guys.
Thank you,
All right,
Jack.
They
thank
need,
y'all so
they need
much.
another raise after that 51. That's what I'm
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, more important, you all just society.
And I think we had a resident who, don't forget to talk to him on the way out. All right, so that leads us to,
Nuisance properties.
to the nuisance properties. So, again, this is where we're just kind of looking on direction from council and George. We have properties that continue to be issues, code enforcement. At the last WUMA meeting, we talked about how it's one of the biggest challenges across the county, because they can clean it up a little bit and then it goes right back to being bad again. We have a business in violation that's been in violation for years, and like now that we have a better staffing situation, we would like to try to get a better hold on cleaning up these nuisance properties. So staff and I are looking for some direction from legal and George. We had gotten to the point that, like, I think our question was last meeting, we had gotten to the point on one of the properties that we were gonna go in and clean it up and then just put a lien on their house. But we never were able to find anybody that could do it, so now we've had this lapse in time. So do we have to start the process all over again?
Yeah, with the notices, I think you do, yeah. If that's the direction you want to go.
So we just want direction from council. Are we all collectively fed up enough that that is what we want to do? We want to go through our notice processes and then clean them up and put liens on it and just keep going?
May I interject?
Sure.
I think I've been on council longer than the rest of you guys, and this has been a problem for 12 years, some of these properties, and we have been dealing with, we've been threatening to do this the entire time I've been on council, probably since before I was on council, and we always fall short. And I think we're not doing service to the residents that live next door to these properties, that we either change councils, or we change staff, or we fall through a loophole from legal, and we have to start the process over again. And we just never seem to get to the finish line. And I'd like to see us start doing, enforcing rules that we have, so that I don't want to live next to some of the properties that I've seen slides of. And I know residents that pay their taxes don't want to either. So I'd like to see us start moving forward and getting some results instead of just talking about it.
Who does the cleanup?
Well, I think,
That's the hard part.
yeah, I agree with you that we need to have clearly defined procedures and we go through that. As I've said before, this body tends to then, have sympathy for, or, oh, let's not do that this time, or let's try something else. And we shoot ourselves in the foot more often than not. And I think we just need to get a procedure we can follow and agree to. And to your point, I think we have pretty stable staff now. So hopefully we can get some resolution.
Yes, Kathy?
When council approved this back in January, I found a company called Dumpster Dog that will go and fill up a dumpster full and charge us by the dumpster load. The issue that we ran into was when I was looking around and asking questions on how to proceed, the recommendation from the school of government was to go through the court system to remove liability from the town. So we just need to know what does council wants us to clean this up, staff, the attorney, we can figure it out, how to make it happen. We have someone to clean it up. There's going to be some screening because some of this is pretty significant. It's gone on so long, like the one behind you, it is turned sideways, my apologies. That is a field. That is literally a junkyard.
Yeah. I don't care about the cleanup process. I say we do the full extent of the law from a legal perspective and just go that way.
And that also
Because I don't
includes the
think-
vehicles too. Our ordinances say no junk vehicles, and some of these properties have multiple vehicles just sitting on their properties. They need to be towed.
What I'm proud of this council for is we have been for the last 8 or so years, 6, 8 years, been very firm on our zoning. So now that is firm and we are standing firm and this is what Wesley Chapel is, and if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. It's time to be firm with our code enforcement. Clean up your property and that's it.
And the other question I have is, the cleanup is going to cost the village because we are going to have to put liens on these properties. One's a trust. I don't know if we'll ever get any money out of that or not. So is the council willing to let us start with maybe one of the smaller properties and get an idea of what the cost will be and then move through? We have 10 properties that we need to focus on that go from...
George, can we start with all 10 and just start issuing, get our
Yeah.
process?
I mean, you have the authority to clean up, so then you have to make a decision whether or not you want to go the route we went before, which was file a lawsuit and seek, a court order enjoining any further activity on the property and requiring the landowner to clean it up, or whether you want the quicker method, which is sending out the notices of your ordinance, cleaning up the property yourself, and then filing a lien for the charges against that, or for that.
Well,
Which is a longer
Seemed
process.
like the last time we went through this, it seemed like the inclination was this court process is what we wanted to do, but then when we got through it, and it takes a while, and you have to deal with service issues, and you have to deal, it's definitely more expensive from the attorney fee side, because once you get filed court, it gives an opportunity for the property owner to file a response, and you have to deal with court hearings and all that kind of stuff. So that's a longer, more expensive process than the other process, which is, in essence, sending out a series of notices under your ordinance and state statute, and then finding a contractor to go do the work. I think what Kathy's alluding to is there some risk when you do that mechanism that the person you hire to go clean that stuff takes what isn't a junk car, or there's a family heirloom hidden amongst the dump. You can't prevent those kind of things from coming up, right? You can't prevent somebody from making some kind of argument that what was taken had some value and wasn't actually junk, but
But wouldn't our letter say to them, You have 30 days to clean it up, or we will.
It does. It doesn't necessarily identify each and every, you're not identifying each and every piece of junk in that letter, is what I'm saying. So I think that's probably what Kathy is alluding to, whatever the school of government suggested is you're not necessarily totally insulated from getting in a fight with the property owner if you go that method, but it's easier and quicker and cheaper.
Could we put body cameras on them? On the
Sure.
cleanup crew?
Film the process.
So they would very clearly see what it is they're picking up or not? Would that
Yeah,
help?
I would think, I don't know, I've never engaged one of these companies before. You could also direct them to take an inventory.
You know, body cameras, we'd have to buy them? I mean, how would we get body cameras?
Can you, I don't know, can you go, probably Amazon.
Well, we could just film it, you know, we could have someone film it.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's a source of evidence, and in the grand scheme of things, not that expensive. I mean, life is expensive, people. You have to pay for stuff.
Probably not a large risk, but anyway,
Just
but I again, and I'm assuming that's what was referenced.
So the school government said what, Kathy, to,
They just referenced going through the courts and getting a court order or getting some sort of approval from the court that we can clean it up. Then it sort of takes, and I'm just speaking on what the school government article said, and this is our attorney, but they just said really to prevent and to protect the town. And instead of us just going out there and cleaning it up, go through the court system. I don't know that process, I just know you go, you get the judge to say, you know, judgment for the town to clean it up, or...
Respectfully, Kathy, we've been down that road multiple times, George will tell you, and we've won most of those cases. And then it's like, okay, and that's as far as it got.
David?
I agree, Mike, completely with you. I mean, I've only been on council for a short 4 years, but I've already seen that. We've gone through the legal process, we've gotten to this point, and then it's just stalled, you know. At this point, I'm ready for something quick and something with some teeth that we can get some of this, we can get a process started. I mean, we've heard from a resident, Mr. Wilson, who, you know, bought property and then saw his neighborhood get because of the nuisances. We need to do something quick.
But to be clear, the notices say, on this date, we're going to come clean up this property and we're going to haul stuff away. We're also going to charge you as the homeowner that expense for doing that. And we're going to put a lien on your property for doing that.
Yeah, that's right.
And we can do that without going through the courts.
Yeah, again, it requires those specific notices that include some of the information that Mike's talking about and others. So, you know, so if council wanted to pursue that, I mean, I don't know what kind of specific procedure you would want to follow in the future, but if there's certain ones, if it's 10 or whatever it is that are identified now, if you want to go down that path, then, you know, we can work with Vaughn to get because Vaughn would send the initial notices out from the village. And then,
Does he send all of them? Like, no matter if it's a zoning versus a...
Code enforcement.
yeah, because it falls under your code enforcement basically. So we would take a look at them and make sure that, you know, they're being, includes the information that's needed. But yeah.
So what's your thought about what Kathy was saying, that's school of government's recommendation as a CYA kind of thing?
I haven't read what the school of government said, but, and I certainly can, but, I mean,
I mean, like,
typically what you're getting when you sue there is you're actually getting an order from the court that requires the property owner to remove the stuff, right? Which then requires the enforcement of the sheriff's office. And if they don't, then they can be held in contempt, you know, even potentially criminal contempt for abusing the order. But it still, I think it still kind of sits. I think that's the problem I think you two were alluding to.
Well, the bigger problem that I foresee is that if I'm a resident who's gotten multiple letters over the last 12 years to say clean up my property, and I haven't cleaned up my property, and Wesley Chapel hasn't done anything about it, I'm just going to keep not cleaning up my property because Wesley Chapel's not doing anything about it.
So we are good to, Kathy and I are good to proceed with George and Emily and Vaughn and
Sheriff's Department,
hopefully come to you with a clear procedure outlined at our next meeting.
And start on all properties. not
Which
just the
one,
center
which
property.
neighborhood has the most? Because maybe if we cleaned up one, everybody else would clean up their
Or
own
one
stuff.
per neighborhood.
Well, there's 5 on each street. There's 5 on Red Cedar and 5 on Cottonwood.
Cottonwood has been habitual for as long as I can
Long time.
remember.
Well, you know what, maybe they can, maybe if they come, maybe if Trash Dog or whoever comes and knocks all 10 of them out in 2 weeks,
We
we
could
get a
We
discount.
could get a contract see if they could do that, and
Yeah.
then
So,
we
we'll
might
just
even,
go ahead and get that ball rolling and start
we
those
might even could
notices.
hire a couple of Union County Sheriff's deputies, maybe 2 or 3 to go out there too, while they do it, so that we have some oversight on it.
Trust me, the homeowners are not going to be happy to have people on the
They're not.
property taking their stuff and throwing it into a dumpster.
And that would protect the people who
Can
do
I
it.
put my daughter's room on that list?
No, that's hazardous waste site.
All right, so my takeaway is Kathy and I are going to work with Emily and Vaughn and George. We're going to come up with a clear process, come to y'all, and then we're going to start sending out letters.
I would also check with the Sheriff's Department when they call you back about those other items and make sure that they know what's going on so they're not blindsided as well.
Yes, sir.
That will be part of our policy. let them know.
Yeah, but I'd say, post haste.
Post haste. Are y'all okay? We got the process now. Now we go ahead and send out that first letter?
Yes.
Okay.
Process
not
and
waiting on
first letter with the process, so we're going to go ahead and get the
We
letter
go ahead
out.
and start sending
All
out the
10
letters.
letters with them. You
All
guys
right.
figure it out, letter work.
Priority middle.
We are in a hurry. Are we through with closed session? Is that a question?
Kathy, does that clear? You good? If we move
Yes,
on?
so can we get a motion on sending the letters and then developing because the process is going to involve either 30 or 40 days, so by the time we come down to the next meeting, we'll be ready to take action because they'll have their letters. So if you could just give us a motion that everyone's in agreement.
I make a motion that we delegate the mayor and staff legal counsel to develop a procedure process complete with descriptions and timelines, and to begin said process with all known complaints at that point in time, and provide updates at ongoing meetings.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Third time's the charm.
Okay, and to develop,
Did you not raise your hand, mister?
process descriptions and timelines, something. And what was the last part? And timelines and begin. After timelines, you said.
Timelines, and then you go with all the
Okay,
complaints, any complaints on the books at the time, even if they're not here now, go.
got it. Okay, we will get them out.
Now, I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
What about my favorite tree company? What's the problem? Where are we at on that?
Your favorite tree company?
They're also in violation.
Oh, that, Emily can speak to that. Emily's been looking at them, so.
Well, we sent out a letter today from Vaughn's, explained to them that, let's see, is our understanding that the prior notice of your relocation of business would be conclusion of the use of the property as part of Central Illinois Tree Service. To bring the property into compliance, the use of the property for this purpose must end by May 1st. And all commercial tree cutting, debris, equipment, commercial vehicles, etc. must be removed from the property. If the property remains in violation following May 1st, the village will pursue formal enforcement action.
Since the last letter went out, they put up more signs.
I know. So, we can help this letter out today.
Okay. All right, and thank you for your help on the corner. I have not noticed what I had noticed before.
Good.
Do we have any update on the sign violations or the sign sweeps?
Yes, he's doing a nice job. He's picked up, I don't know, what did I say, 70 signs, or 62 signs, and then he picked up another, like 50 or 55 signs, and now we have him going every other week. Amy is going to be kind of monitoring that process since she knows her signs. So what I've asked her to do, in conjunction with the mayor, is that she's going to be watching the cross sections, and if she sees a lot of signs, she'll go ahead and let him know to go ahead and do a pickup. But other than that, we'll be doing every 2 weeks for now and see how it goes.
One more intersection I'd like you to put on his radar is Waxhaw Indian Trail Road, just past Newtown Elementary on think it's Shannon Vista, whatever that cross street is. That's one of those habitual intersections that we see builders get a bunch of,
Waxhaw Indian Trail Road just past Newtown Road?
no, just past Newtown Elementary.
Newtown Elementary.
I think it's Shannon Vista is the name.
Shannon Road is not in
Shannon
West
Road.
Chapel.
That's what I was going to say. Are we sure the entire intersection's in Wesley Chapel?
I'll check it and make sure it's...
Well, when we used to go out, we used to go out with the map in the car. And believe it or not, there'd be an intersection where 3 corners were in West Chapel and 1 corner wasn't. We couldn't touch, we
Exactly.
couldn't touch the signs on 1 corner, so,
And Deb and I were just questioning where you stated.
yeah. All right.
I'll take the complaint. We'll pull them down out of any corner and we'll see.
Well, I don't want to
Who's gonna
I don't want
post?
to pay you another town floor.
No
We're
one's
out
ever,
there, I'm tired of looking at it.
no one's ever complained about us taking down illegal signs.
Well, he's doing a nice job. He's actually pulling off the old Lost Kitty and Lost Doggy signs, not the new ones.
Our neighbors at Bloom would appreciate
old
if we took them off, took the signs off their corners.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
Just like we said earlier, residents don't know where they live, so they don't know that the corners are ours.
Exactly.
So, all right, so that brings us to the finance officer report.
Can I,
If I may,
can I walk through the first 4 pretty quickly? Do you mind? The ABCD?
yeah, before we get into Kathy's presentation, Kathy, I have to say, what am I going to say? This is the best finance officer's report we've gotten. I can actually read it. The text is big enough. I can still see the numbers.
Thank you.
And the format that you've got it laid out in is very user-friendly. Thank you for not doing the old-fashioned way of doing it where I couldn't read it in magnifying glass.
You're very welcome. So on the finance
You had a
report,
magnifying glass.
we're looking pretty strong. We're looking to be short on some of our revenue coming in. I don't quite know why, other than the fact it's just not coming in. I've forecasted out through the end of June. Now I'm going on last year's pattern, so I could be off a little, which could account for the difference. We're also underspending quite a bit, so overall it looks like we're going to be pretty good coming into the end of the year in June. I'll be looking at that closer again, the forecasting again this month, just to kind of keep bringing it down and tying it tighter. We also have our budget meeting coming up. We've determined May 14th at 6 p.m. You should have received an invitation for that. That was called by Mayor Fuller upon talking with you. The audit report, Kendra, are you here? I'm not sure why Kendra's not here tonight. She's our auditor, but she will come and give us a report, but I can just give you a brief update. Our reports were turned in on time. We have an unmodified report, which means there are no issues. You can have an unmodified or several categories of modified. So our reporting has been done and we are good, but she's still going to come and talk to you. That's just a requirement of the state. No other reason for her to come. The unmodified report just simply says that everything is presented according to GAAP, that it's readable, it doesn't really check for fraud. However, if she comes across something like that, she's required to tell you, but she's really looking at the reporting and making sure it's in line with accounting standards and government standards. But I'll reach out to her and try to get her back next week. The Village Dry Pond, we have some rocks out here mid-yard that we can give to John. He can take those and the ones in the mouth right here in the parking lot. The few little rocks were just simply for the sod to take hold. So all of those rocks we're going to give to John to take to the park, and I think there's a little pile over here that he can get as well. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, and on the concrete, we are looking at doing the pad at the park, and we're also looking at doing a piece of the sidewalk. We have 3 quotes. One of the people are here, JSO Concrete, in case you have any questions, Alma and Jose. I have to say it right, Jose. So when we're looking at these quotes, we have a large company that, as you know, has 18.5. We have a next company that's a little over 16,000. JSO Concrete is coming in just under 12,000. They have good references. They've been in business for 20, 25 years. They really want the business, and so they came tonight to talk to you to see if you had any questions. The concrete people don't typically do sod and cleanup, but they have sort of a solution where they were going to explain to you, if you'd like to hear, how they're going to do it to sort of protect our grass and protect our park. We do not have an engineering spec. Our engineer Bonnie said that she could get a specification to us for $1,500. Typically, if you're pouring a concrete pad and you're going to play basketball on it, you don't want it to crack, but it's not as big a deal as having a 32-ton truck on it has tipping points, that's really not the right term, but where it's leaning forward on its front tires and picking up the trash can and leaning on its back and back on the front. So it's got kind of this slight rocking motion, putting different pressure on the concrete. So our engineer initially said that maybe we should use some fiber or wire mesh, but JSO Concrete was the only company that said, hey, you need some wire mesh under this, within this pad. So wire mesh and fiber are things that we're considering. I don't know that they have fiber in their quote, but they have wire mesh for sure.
We have both.
Fiber.
Remember when we discussed the difference between the fiber and the wire mesh?
So that's in there for just over
Yeah,
12?
it's in both.
Okay, and then we have an option to have that third cracked sidewalk panel done for an additional, what was it, six?
The sidewalk,
Yeah, the third panel.
630.
Yeah, so there was an additional panel for $630. So in looking at these three contract providers, we're not really buying anything. It is sort of a construction contract. There aren't really a lot of requirements around it, given it's under $30,000, but council can have their preference and can speak with JSO or me with any questions.
Yeah, so I got a question. One for you and one for you. We didn't know the third panel was cracked when we sent these out.
I saw it, but I went with, when John sent this out, John initially got 3 quotes for 3 different types of repairs, and the third repair was what he recommended that we go with. So I let John know that I was going to put it back out for bid using the exact requirements that he had before I had actually even gone to look at the park. I just pulled exactly what he had, and then I went out to the park and took pictures and saw the third panel. So I asked them just to put an option. They were so low. I don't have any of the other 2 companies. They're so much higher that I thought if you don't want to go with this company, then I have to get that information from the others.
So we probably should consider that. And on your quote, it says fiber mesh and it says wire mesh.
Yes.
So am I to understand the fiber, is it actually loose fibers or is it
It's-
truly a
It's
fabric?
mixed in the concrete, the
It's
fiber
the
is
loose
mixed in the, and then the wire mesh is actually laid down.
Yep.
And then the concrete is
Okay,
poured.
that's what I understood them to be, but that's what I want to make sure. Thank you.
And then, can I add something? So whenever we got her, her description as to what all the work needed, it said 2 to 3 panels. So that's why we put the third one in parentheses for the 630, because it wasn't clear if it was 2 or 3, and so we just quoted for the 2 and then added if you guys really needed the third one, how much it would be.
Is the third panel the square panel or the circular panel?
Sidewalk rectangular panel.
I'm sorry?
The sidewalk, the rectangular panel on the
Okay.
sidewalk.
So price problem.
Kathy, question, a couple things. I want to get David's opinion on this, I think more than anybody else's. But has John seen these quotes?
Yes.
John has seen all of these quotes.
All right. And then the
John
last-
set the specifications.
That's fine. And then the last question, do all the quotes have a warranty?
JSO contract has a 1-year warranty. I'm not sure about the other 2. I know one of the other companies has a warranty, but the largest provider had a lot of stipulations which were concerning. They said actual prices may increase based on the daily cost of material and fuel and are subject to change daily. And then it goes on to talk about asphalt, which we're not using, and that customer agrees that the following items will not be the responsibility, which is surveying stakes to be provided by others, traffic control, landscaping to be provided, vehicle towing. So they have 2 or 3 pages of things that,
My biggest concern is we spend this money and then a year from now, it's all cracked.
concrete has a tendency, by the very nature of it, to crack. That
Not
said,
if it's poured properly.
well, let me finish the sentence. It has a tendency to crack. That's why you have so many other fillers like fiber and mesh and maybe even the what do you call them? The
Rebar.
little cuts in them? What?
Extension.
Expansion joints and rebar.
Yeah, those, so that, any kind of pressure can move it.
But we have people who lay it for a living.
Yes.
How long do you expect this concrete to last?
Okay, so on our report here, we originally had 6 inches thick, and then he was talking about we could do it 8 inches thick, instead of the 6, and that just adds extra support on it to prevent it from breaking, like you said, within a year. So if you do the 8 inches, like 5 years, 5 to 10 years. So it just adds, because like she said, the dump truck is heavy and it's, constantly going to be picking up, dropping off, and picking up, dropping off. So if you add the extra 2 inches, it should be fine.
What's that going to do to the materials cost?
Sorry?
What's that going to do to the cost if you add 2 more inches?
¿Cuánto más subiría si son 2 pulgadas más?
Material 1050 you've got there, and I don't know if that's
It would go up by 1,500. The budget
total?
would go up by 1,500.
Wow, okay.
Still has some-
Yeah.
And the other thing that I would say too is you have the recommendation of someone who's been doing it 20, 25 years. It goes back to engineering. If you want to have that additional reassurance through an engineer who's measuring, the weights and to make it last, that's an
Well,
option.
There's 2 things to consider, the engineer and the guy that actually pours the concrete and warranties it. So I'm interested in David's opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think we need an engineer.
Okay.
I think we're throwing money away with an engineer. I also think a 1-year warranty is about standard. That's what we provide on our workmanship is a 1-year warranty. My only question would be, cost of materials escalation. The quote that we have is good for how many days?
30 days, but that's what we have on our proposal that we sent out. It's good for 30 days. The thing is, as we approach summertime, everything starts to go up. Concrete is in higher demand, so the price might vary. So the longer you might wait till summertime, it might change or fluctuate the price a little bit. But we can always negotiate the price on certain things. But we just have to take into account that everything has, the price of things have gone up for materials and stuff.
But if we execute the contract and issue you a PO within 30 days,
Then
you
lock that
guys
in.
cover any cost of any escalation cost.
Correct.
Okay.
But as long as we get that, signed, the contract signed, and then the payment secured, like the first payment secured, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, so to clarify, the quote was dated March 6th. And now this is April 8th, so it's already 32 days.
Yeah,
So
but
you're-
we've made back and forth with Kathy. I think, was it the last time I emailed?
It's been about a week and a half, 2 weeks. since
Yeah,
that.
so that was like from the original, the March 6th is like from the first time that, I sent the first proposal when she first brought it up to you guys, I think last month.
Can we
maybe?
consider this an April
So-
8th date?
Yeah,
So as long as we do something within the next 30 days, you would honor this quote?
yeah, see, there's another issue.
We'll consider the quote April 8th.
So,
Yes.
if we do make a motion, council, do we want to go with the 8 inches?
Well, let me ask a question, and David, I think you'd be the best person to answer this. Would it be reasonable if instead of doing the 6 inches of concrete, which I think is not going to hold up very long, we go ahead and spend the extra money and do the 8 inches? Could we ask for a longer warranty?
You could ask. If I was them, I would not give them extra warranty, but you could ask. But again, Kathy's point, concrete's gonna crack.
Yep.
There's nothing that you can do to prevent concrete from cracking.
Moisture in the ground changes.
There's nothing you can do to prevent concrete.
We can do everything we can do to protect it, but that's fine.
I just don't want to be doing this again 3 years from now.
You won't, because we won't have any money when I tell you all that stuff.
Yes, Ms. Martinez?
Yes, so we are willing to do 3 years of warranty if you do the 8 inches.
We asked.
So, before you go any further, I'd like to make a motion. Have the JSO concrete quote with the addition of the quote of $11,970, with the addition of the third sidewalk panel for $630, 8 inches of concrete as opposed to 6 inches for an additional $1,500, and changing the warranty to 3 years.
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank
We
you for having
appreciate
us.
it.
We didn't vote.
It is still discussion, folks. I know how to run the meeting. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I would like to compliment you guys.
Thank you so much, guys.
I would like to tell you, looking at all the different presentations or offers from different companies, your quote was very professional and to the
Thank you.
point, precise with the pictures. You didn't go into what everything else you do, and it was very well done. I was very impressed with your proposal.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All in favor? Yeah.
Thank you. You
We'll
guys
get
have a
that
great
checked
night.
to you. All right, so that brings us to,
Well, what's the-
Can I ask who seconded that motion? I got Lori's and then someone.
Mike?
And what's the timeline on this project?
As soon as Kathy can get it out the door.
Once we're ready, we're ready. Once I talk to her tomorrow, we can get it going.
Weather permitting.
so it says dam RFP update, so just let me tell you the very sad news that I'm bringing you. I'm not sure all this legalese, but apparently there are 2 rounds of submittals. And they are not going to actually give the funding amounts until after the second submittal. So our engineer has received the form and has to submit it. She's going to ask if dam safety staff can tell her if there's any way to know or guess whether all of the projects will get funded or not. The first round tells them how many projects have applied and what the total dollar amounts are. But now there's round 2. So the round 2 document says, I can find it again. Part 2 is due to FEMA. I don't really get this. We anticipate that FEMA will announce awards in mid-April or early May, but then the Part 2 application, which has project-specific information, is due to FEMA by July 21st. So the grant program is competitive, and the total sum requested by all interested projects may exceed the amount awarded to FEMA. So as Part 2 of the application, FEMA requires that all eligible projects to be put through FEMA's risk prioritization tool, which is a screening level risk assessment of the project.
So what I'm hearing is they're going to prioritize all their projects. There's going to be a red line. If you fall below the red line, you get nothing.
Yes.
That's how life works.
Yep. So, the North Carolina Dam Safety and Program's intent is to award funding to a portfolio of projects such that the total amount of risk reduction across the state is maximized as much as is practical for the award amount given.
I'd also like to make a note that we have to do these repairs regardless of the grant. The work still
So,
has to be done.
so the state will conduct risk prioritization in May, and they will let people know in early June if you are a successful sub-applicant. And then you have to provide additional information to FEMA to ask for the money. And the sharing is, here's to Mike's point, the sharing is 65-35.
That's what I expect.
And we have to show proof of funds prior to contract, and the contract is for 3 years. So
Does that translates to pause, or do we just continue to move forward?
we keep moving forward. She's gonna submit the paper for round 2, and we'll hope that we at least get some of our money.
So if it's, using nice round numbers here, if it's $1 million, we would have to pay $350 and we have $250. So we know we'd be out of pocket at least another $100,000. I got that right? Gotcha. Okay.
Maybe more depending on the price, and I don't know how important we are compared to what else is going on in the state.
Yeah, it could be like Baltimore and their bridge. It could be something much worse than us.
So I guess it's just TBD again. So we probably will not have this information to move forward with our budget meeting. But we will, after we get to item number 10, we will need to know that we're gonna have to put at least another 100,000 in that dam remediation line.
We know she's requested or submitted 926,000. So, and FEMA said they could give a little more, so I think it's pretty safe to estimate about $1 million on the budget,
Yeah.
which will be 350,000.
And we didn't account for the things like the irrigation, so that's gonna make it a little higher too.
Well, there's options there. One of the options is do nothing.
Depending on the time of the year, that might be feasible.
But this is why every fall when they get to work, we won't have any money.
Yeah, we want, and then who knows when the engineer would start.
So,
So
we're
that's,
gonna wait for an item 10 to do the motion.
Well, and can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Are we making plans for, in the plan for the dam to protect the fish as best we can?
we hope to. Amy is gonna work with John about that.
Okay.
They're gonna look into like the irrigation and then if we can save any fish.
And I would say, if we choose not to do anything and drain everything, keep everything dry, I would suspect there would be the opportunity to relocate said critters, of whatever sort,
Bring
to
your own
another
bucket.
pond.
If you have a mass death situation because you don't, you're going to have a stinking mess.
No,
I will
that's what I'm
tell you
saying, is
that.
that we would look to relocate them to a, like, if we say we're gonna go dry, then I think we should look to relocate them to another pond.
Is there somebody qualified to do that?
Mike's got some buckets,
And he's got waders, I'm sure.
so I'm good with that.
Okay.
It won't be as hard for him because it'll be in the water, so his hips won't bother him.
We have a fishing competition
And a turtle bog.
and say, keep everything you catch. Okay.
Okay, so I guess that dam update is to just say that we are continuing to wait, but we will not apparently know this budget year. Which is,
Why didn't we know about this two-round system at the beginning? And why are they just springing this on us now?
well, she says she knew that there were 2 rounds, but she didn't think, she thought the second round was providing, like, they said, hey, you're gonna get the money in round 1, and round 2 is you proving your engineering plan and what you're fixing.
That you're ready to give them money.
Okay.
She did not realize that the actual funding amounts would not be awarded until after the second submittal. It would be nice if we knew kind of what.
Well, I think the only thing, if I was the person on the other end deciding, it would be as long as the municipality has the funds for the matching part of the grant.
But that's not what they said. They said there's a formula for prioritization. I just wonder who else applied and what their priority is.
So the question would be, do you do one big project that costs a lot of money, or do you do a bunch of little projects that cost less, is what it'll come down to. Because that's the way they've done it in the past.
I don't know, I'll just keep my fingers crossed. All right, so planning board report. The chair is not here, so Emily?
And he said there was no meeting last week, so he did let me know. And there was no meeting in March, so he has nothing to report anyway, but he has to work tonight.
All right.
Why was there no meeting, like a quorum?
There wasn't anything.
We had
to
some
discuss.
wrong.
Oh,
They didn't have stuff for anything, we thought they would.
So, Ms. Hines, would you like to share anything with us?
I haven't really prepared anything. We have
Just
a,
training to ordinances. Just kind of working to ordinances.
yeah, we do have some public hearing, we have 2 public hearings tonight. But I can tell you, we will have a meeting, planning board meeting coming up. We have a final plat on the agenda. They're still working through a couple of different notes on that, but we'll be having a meeting for that. And we've had a couple of different subdivisions of people that have looked at this possibility. And I was telling the mayor today that we do have a lot of people that inquire, but we explain to them what our rules are and how the village wants to be. And they sometimes move on, but we get more people coming in and saying, well, we still want to develop. So the ever evolving door, but we're still growing, but in a controlled way. But like I said, we have 2 public hearings on the agenda. One is the floodplain ordinance amendment, and the other one is the infrastructure acceptance hearing.
So do you want to make the comments for those before or after I open the public hearing?
I can do that. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Before we get into the public hearing,
sure,
Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
Emily, can I ask?
sure.
Anything new on commercial development? I think there was some talks about something being started behind Target. Does that move forward?
Nothing has come to me.
Okay.
Probably not quite at the end of that 10 weeks. More like 4.5. For those in the audience, we are hoping that Target tells us some leases that they have signed. Not Target, Aston tells us some leases they have signed soon. Is that all your questions? Okay. So I will open the public hearing for the flood damage ordinance amendment and let Planner Hines introduce that.
So in front of you tonight is a request for amendments to the floodplain ordinance. The North Carolina Department of Emergency Management requested that the village amend the floodplain damage prevention ordinance to meet the 2021 model ordinance. So I went through and made, most of them are minor changes, some required language, required language that's in there. Some of them are just some deletions as to references from the form numbers and that type of thing. The only real option, well, the only option that I recommended to put in there, and the planning board recommended, was for substantial improvement. The model ordinance and the ordinance that we have right now has a 1-year cumulative cost for repairs, reconstruction, rehabilitation, addition, or improvements equal to 50% of the market value at the start of the original work. So if someone's house is damaged and they have to do work on it, it's considered substantial improvement if the cost of their work is 50% or more of the market value of their house. And what staff and the planning board are recommending is to actually make that a 5-year cumulative cost. And that is because that is what is consistent with what Union County has. So if someone, for example, has a piece of property, they have had multiple flood damage over, let's say, 4 years, and then they decide they're going to annex into the village. Well, then we've got to start over again, but because we only have 1 year. But if we have the 5 year, which is what's consistent with them, then we can keep up that 5 year, so that they actually have to do substantial improvement to their house, which means they actually have to elevate that structure up to the base flood elevation. And that's to help decrease the risk of that property, and that helps decrease the money that FEMA has to spend so they can on properties for flood damage. So, like I said, this is coming from the state. This is everything except for that one part is from their model ordinance, which is what we're required to update our ordinance. So that means that so we can continue to have that FEMA can continue to allow people in West of Chapel to get flood insurance.
And sadly, this was the case. We had to closely watch a property that was damaged recently.
Yes.
So is there anyone signed up to speak for the public hearing on the flood damage ordinance amendment? Okay. Then do I have a motion from council to adopt the amended floodplain damage prevention ordinance as presented?
So motion.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? And then that brings us to I'm going to open the public hearing for the infrastructure
Can you
acceptance
close that
guarantee.
public hearing?
Oh, I will close the public hearing for the flood damage ordinance amendment. And I will open the infrastructure acceptance guarantee public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. This is been brought to our attention from residents and have discussed it with council, where there's a need of some protection for infrastructure when it's been completed, the final plats have been done, but the accepting agency, such as DOT, has not actually accepted the road. That's a good example where, and because they have minimum requirements for the roads to be accepted, they have no minimum requirements of number of houses, so that the roads can be accepted. So what staff is recommending and planning board recommended is that when the developer completes the project, that they have a acceptance guarantee, which is anything, however the guarantee wants to be done by the developer, at 10% of the actual cost of that specific infrastructure, that we hold an acceptance guarantee until that infrastructure is actually accepted by the receiving entity, such as DOT for roads.
Do I have anyone signed up to speak at this public hearing? Okay, if not, do I have a motion to adopt the infrastructure acceptance guarantee ordinance as presented?
Motion, so motion.
Do I have a second?
Second, but I've got a question.
Sure.
Does that also only apply to HOA acceptance?
No,
Okay.
sorry, I was trying to think, I was thinking through like
Okay.
what scenario, that's why I was kind of like,
Okay, any further discussion or questions for the planner?
Turn it over to HOAs when their project's completed.
yeah.
All right, all in favor? Unanimous, and I will close that public hearing. That brings us to the $250,000 direct grant.
No,
Oh my gosh.
I didn't make it up.
What? Oh, we added it, oh yeah. Okay, so now it's time for the arm wrestling between Jonathan and Karen. So, are you right-handed or left-handed, Karen? Traditionally, we give it to the longest seating alternate, so.
But my feeling is that Jonathan's contributions to the discussions on planning board are much more valuable than anything that I have to say. So I would rather see him as a positive board member, and I'll continue to be the alternate.
So you won't quit on us.
I won't put on him. He's fabulous.
We didn't have any discussion about this. I found out about it until today when I read the agenda.
So no collusion.
Or duress, yeah.
So you don't want to serve as a permanent member?
Not right now. I think we've got a terrific person to be on the board.
Okay.
Yeah, it probably won't be long.
Probably won't be long, you'll still be a permanent.
I'm happy to serve, but
I mean, what grace, right? Like,
It's so nice.
yeah.
Such a nice compliment to Jonathan as
Yeah.
well.
Is that a council appointment or a mayor appointment?
It is a council. I do committees, y'all do boards. Right?
Yep.
All right, so council, do we have a motion?
Motion to appoint Jonathan Ayla to the open planning board seat.
Number 2, with a term ending date of 6/30/2027.
I was looking at this part of the agenda, so it wasn't there.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Thank you both for being willing to serve.
You have to vote.
I am still discussing. Y'all talk all the time and I can't talk.
That's why you don't vote either.
All in favor?
Except Amanda.
Let me put this a little bit. I'm just gonna hold it for a minute. Okay, that brings us now to item number 10. It is recommended that we apply the $250,000 direct grant that we received from the OSMB to the needed dam repairs. We know we now have to come up with at least 35%. So if we take the $250,000 that we received and move it to the dam repair, that fulfills all of our grant obligations. So that means the money is now, we don't have to deal with all the reporting and the other stuff. We've got $250,000 in that reserved for the 35% match.
Makes sense?
Motion to apply the $250,000 direct grant from USMD to the dam repair project.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
And do I need to make a motion to move $100,000 or designate $100,000?
Probably in the budget.
In the budget, we'll do that.
Well, I didn't know if they needed to know in May, as you were reading through that letter, if we needed to show that we have that 35% budgeted now.
We can motion to appropriate money for that.
I would rather be safe than sorry. Because if we appropriate it now and say, let's put another $100,000 designated towards that, and it comes out that we don't need it, we can reverse it.
But at least this is earmarked.
It's earmarked for that, and they can clearly see, here's our 35%.
That we're coming to the table with our,
Yes.
I think it's a
So
good
you would
idea.
just commit 100,000 and I'll just move it up.
out of
on
the fund balance?
Out of the unassigned fund balance.
Unassigned fund
So
balance?
you commit 100,000 out of the unassigned fund balance,
To the dam.
specifically for the use of the dam repair.
That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
As long as it works from an accounting perspective.
So all in favor? Unanimous. All right, then that brings us to the WUMA update. Please mark your calendar for May 23rd, 2024. I think I'm bumping Parks and Rec to the conference room. I apologize, but WUMA needed a big space, and we were on the hook to host that day.
What time of the day?
It's at 7 p.m. They wanted to do it, we normally meet at 4, but they wanted to meet at 7 because they wanted to invite the public and all council members. So I'm going to ask Kathy to publish a notice of possible quorum for us. It is a CRTPO 101, and our fellow WUMA members have talked about what a valuable training this has been for them for understanding how road funding is a process that goes through in our area.
Would it be better to cancel the Parks and Rec meeting?
I did not want to do that. I wanted them to decide. So I figured they could decide in April if they wanted to proceed or reschedule. Because they will meet again before.
Kathy, would you have even put that on the Parks and Rec budget to consider canceling the May?
The park and rec budget?
Amy knows. Amy knows.
Okay.
Just I want her on the agenda for this month's Parks and Rec meeting, to consider canceling the one that's conflicting with this.
Or
Because there might be
reschedule.
people, or reschedule, because there's people at that meeting that might want to come to the WUMA meeting.
Yeah.
Me for one.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be very valuable for anybody
Who
to
is doing the presentation?
some lady.
No name?
I know her name, but I can't remember right now.
Not Judy might be right. What's the other one?
We are actually pushing that out on the website twice. Let the public know what we're doing.
But I would suggest it. I did tell y'all that I would come back with my notes from last time. They did talk about the conditional annexation bill, which Joel referred to earlier, and it has been introduced in the past, and the state legislature squashes it, which will probably be what happens again. But it is a conditional annexation bill that says, David, you live in a donut hole. You're surrounded on all sides by Wesley Chapel. We are not going to make you annex in, but if you sell your house or you die and your house is sold, we are going to have you annex into the village at that point. So that way it is not a burden on we're not forcing the current property owner to do it if it's against their will, but it would be. But it probably won't get far, but we can try. We can certainly try because we're not the only area with a lot of donut holes.
Do we want to do any kind of resolution for that, to support it or generate resolutions from other
A
municipalities?
state
or-
representative was supposed to get together some wording for the bill, and as soon as I get that, I'll bring it back. And we can do that. That would be a good idea. We did have a presentation from Brian Matthews talking about the uptick you're probably going to see in your county taxes including that the jail was built in 1994 and they have to rebuild it with additional bed space, how to pay for it. It's $130 million estimated. And that the courts can force you to build a new jail, which is kind of what happened with the last jail and why it is not quite lasting as long. We also have to have a new judicial center. It is undersized, at least there are 18 new public defenders, and they need more court space, so they have to build or renovate. And the courts can force you to build a jail with more court space, so they're trying to be a little proactive. You are going to get a reevaluation of your properties in 2025. It will take effect in the 2026 fiscal year. And even though we just had one, the significant property values increase in the area triggered this reevaluation.
It's a state mandate,
Yeah,
not
not
the county.
Water and sewer in the coming years. There are going to be issues with pressure and fire flow. Whatever. In the next 20 years. There are capacity issues, and it's interesting because, the county's telling us there are capacity issues, but then they're continuing to approve new developments that are coming across the table, so I don't get it. And interestingly, we get water from two different places, and there's a lot of growth pressure on the Catawba Basin side because Lancaster is growing and they're expanding. So we might think we can get more water from the Catawba Basin, but they might say, no, we need it. You have to stay with what you have. So being a county without our own body of water is really problematic. But Brian Matthews, was kind of like the grant, like a lot of information, but no real dates on sewer stuff.
My frustration with the money being spent on the prison is they just went through a minor renovation of the prison 2 or 3 years ago with brand new heating and air conditioning systems and all this kind of stuff. If they knew they were going to build a new jail, why would they spend all that millions of dollars renovating 2 years ago?
Was anything said about reusing the building? Because I assume there's nothing wrong with the building, it's just not big enough.
They did not say that.
Because you would think, right, like they just put in new HVAC, they'd still use the building for some other needs, like maybe the court space or something, right, it's space.
It's easier to build from scratch.
Yeah.
But if it's existing,
No, I understand.
it's wasteful.
I agree.
My tax
So-
I could talk for hours about the way some of our tax dollars have been wasted.
So that's going to bring us to the mayor and council comments. Who wants to go first? Mike wants to go first.
Yeah, I want to go first. I want to go on record for those that, the gentleman that's still here. We have been doing our part on the sound ordinance. And we've been pressing the county staff, the county commissioners and everything to try to get that sound ordinance updated. We want to get some teeth into it so that the Union County Sheriff's Office can do something about it, but it has been a slow go, it's been a slow burn. It's been one of those things that's been on the back burners for at least a year since we've been pushing on it. So, the other thing I've got here on my notes is we were talking about, I spoke with John today, I was at the park, and we talked about this, what do we do to irrigate the grass in the park if we don't have the pond to pull the water from? And I thought about it after I left the park today, after talking to John. And there are parts of the park right now that are being irrigated by the pond, and there's parts of the park that are not being irrigated by the pond. And I don't think if you walked out there, you could tell the difference between the two. So if we end up not spending the extra money, which we don't have, to tie into the municipal water supply temporarily, or into the fire hydrant for the amount of time, I think the grass will make it. So we might have to just go through a construction phase of the park, and I just don't want to throw any more money at the problem, considering it's every time we turn around, it's a little bit, it's 5% more this month than it was last month.
Then I want to borrow your bucket so I can keep my trees water.
No, we'll keep the irrigation for the trees from the hoses water supply, but
All those kids who are going around tearing up the park, we can give them buckets. Start practicing with water. Give them all some like buckets of water.
I like it.
All right, next.
I just want to compliment Kathy on, I really enjoy these agenda comments. I don't know if anybody else has said anything about it. I hope I'm not being redundant, but, and the request for motion, that you're writing that at the end of the thing, these are just very helpful to me, and I appreciate it. And that's just to invite council again to come out Saturday to the 2 o'clock Dogwood Grove, whatever you want to call it.
Next.
I had shared this with the mayor, something I saw that was shared with me about innovative DOT work with plastic parts that they use to create roundabouts at existing intersections. It's extremely creative, and perhaps when the Carpo group is here, and as a way, even to the DOT people, it's like, I don't see a lot of innovation coming out of North Carolina DOT. And to see something like this, that they're like, instead of waiting years, they do some markings at the existing intersection. Granted, our intersections are so tiny already, maybe not practical, but it gives them a way that they can put in a roundabout to get traffic moving and evaluate before they make the big assessment to do big ones. But it was just very innovative, I thought, and I would just love to see something like that, because we have so many intersections that we can't wait years. And I'm sorry, but a light at Wesley Chapel and Potter Road is asinine. and as a waiting concession until the roundabout's done. It will be a nightmare. That's my comment.
Well, after Mike gets done emptying all the water and fish out of the pond, you can go over and start directing traffic.
This afternoon I came through there, I don't remember what time it was, and there was no traffic, there was no waiting, there was no nothing. You come through another time at 4:30, 5:30, yep, there's some backup. But all those times during the day and the evening and night when there is no traffic, it's just asking for trouble. Everybody will just run the light.
Mr. Boyce?
George, it's been a long time since a quote.
It has been a while.
It has been a while, and I tried to find a quote that maybe Danny Hurley would have said, but he's not smart enough to come up with a quote. So,
Thank you.
yeah, so
Amen.
instead I pulled from Sidney Sheldon, the American writer and playwright. He said, "Libraries store the energy that fuels the imagination. They open up windows to the world and inspire us to explore and achieve and contribute to improving our quality of life. Libraries change lives for the better." I had the opportunity yesterday to visit the Southwest Regional Branch of the library that opens to the public on April the 19th. Guys, that thing is a jewel.
You talking about West Side Cuthbertson?
Yeah, right beside of Cuthbertson. The way they have it laid out, the open space, the inviting atmosphere of that library was just incredible. I spent time on a 3D model that opened up a heart, a 3D heart that I was seeing on the screen, and I looked at the valve that my baby daughter has an issue with, and I could feel the pulse from that valve in the pen. It was incredible. I mean, I was blown away by the technology and the advancements that we have right here, just right down the road in Union County with this new library. So I encourage you to go down there, visit, and you'll be amazed with just the quality of that facility.
We can go in there?
Open house is on April the 20th, and it opens after that ribbon. They have a ribbon cutting on the 18th, and it opens after that. And then there's an open house on the 20th.
Okay, she told us the 19th yesterday.
How did you get in early?
Sponsors and
He's special.
benefactors.
What's that?
Sponsors and benefactors.
Oh, look at that.
He gets paid extra for being on council.
say.
All right.
All right, girls, jokes.
Anything else?
That's all.
I just wanted to say, I forgot to say it during the Parks and Rec update. My second grade team at school partners with the Union County Soil and Water Conservation District. We've gotten a small mini grant from them for the past few years. Last year we studied trees. This year we're studying birds, and that has never been a more disrupting lesson plan. There's a bird! Let's go, there's a bird! There's a bird! It's been a really great time. But they do partner with Stallings and a few other parks, municipal and county parks, where she comes out and does programs and classes, building bird feeders, classes about trees and wood and stuff. And so and there's apparently like a national take your kid to a park day or like some kind of day like that. And she does programs in parks on that day. So I've connected her with Pat and Gordon because that would be a good thing to have at the park or at town hall because you don't really have to have a lot of space. But that would be a great kid-friendly, family-friendly, free to us unless we bought the supplies for like bird feeders and stuff. And since she does it in other municipal areas, I think it would be really cool. So hopefully something will come out of that. And that's all. So we're going to let the public go because I need a motion to go into closed session under NCGS 143-318-11A3, attorney-client for our upcoming Five Stones litigation court date on May 6th.
So motion.
Second. All in favor? Thank you, guys.